Welcome to the deep dive. Is it actually possible to become fluent in English in just 5 months? That's a question that feels like a real challenge, maybe even impossible to a lot of people.
It really does. And our source for this deep dive, a transcript from a YouTube video by Read and Learn English, looks at that question head on and says, surprisingly, yes. A definite yes.
Okay, let's unpack that
Yeah.
because, on the surface, 5 months for fluency sounds incredibly ambitious, doesn't it?
Totally.
And this source isn't just saying it's like theoretically possible. It lays out a specific blueprint for how someone could potentially get there.
Yeah, it's less about a magic trick and more about a very focused, pretty intense approach.
Uh-huh.
So our mission today is to dig into this source, understand exactly what they mean by fluency,
Right.
break down the, well, demanding method they propose, and figure out what kind of commitment they say is absolutely necessary to hit that 5-month target.
Let's start right there. What does this source say fluency even is? Because I think for a lot of learners, that word feels like this distant, perfect goal.
And the source tackles that myth immediately. It says fluency doesn't mean speaking perfectly like a native speaker.
Ah,
That idea alone is probably a huge relief for many.
totally. It means you can speak and understand easily, naturally, without that painful hesitation where you're like searching for every single word.
They use a great image.
Yeah.
It should feel like a river flowing smoothly. Your
Yes.
thoughts come out, you feel comfortable expressing yourself,
Mm.
even if the occasional grammar pebble is in the stream, so to speak.
Right. It's about smooth communication, speaking with confidence. Even if you mess up a verb tense or use a slightly wrong preposition sometimes, the goal isn't flawless grammar. It's
Exactly.
effective connection.
Exactly. And what really matters, according to this source, is being able to navigate everyday conversations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, talking about your day, asking for directions, discussing your hobbies.
Very simple stuff, mostly.
Yeah, the basics. They point out that even native speakers trip over their words or make mistakes sometimes. So chasing perfection is just, well, unproductive.
The core is understanding others and sharing your ideas clearly. That shift in focus from perfect to communicative feels really important.
It lowers the barrier to entry, I think,
Yeah.
and makes the goal feel less impossible
Yeah.
until you get to the time commitment they propose.
Ah, yes, the bold claim. 5 months. The source insists it's definitely possible, but only if you combine the right mindset with a specific rigorous method.
And here's where it gets really interesting. They emphasize that it's not just the length of time you spend studying, but the quality, the consistency of your practice.
Right. They give the example that someone practicing effectively for 2 hours a day will blow past someone who studies for 5 hours just once a week.
Makes sense.
That feels intuitive, yeah, but the numbers they put on it are striking.
To reach fluency in 5 months, this source proposes a significant time investment, roughly 600 hours of focused, effective practice.
Wow. Okay. 600 hours in 5 months. So let's break that down. That works out to roughly 20 hours per week. There are around 4 hours each day.
Right. And they are clear. This isn't casual listening while you're doing something else. It requires your full attention, your energy, and a smart, active approach.
But they maintain that if you can actually keep up that level of consistent, focused effort,
Yeah.
following their routine, that level of progress is achievable.
It's a big ask.
Okay, 4 hours a day. Now, for most people listening, that probably sounds like a massive hurdle. Like, how do you even fit that in around work, family, life?
And the source anticipates that. They explicitly say that sitting at a desk for 4 straight hours doing grammar drills is actually the wrong way to go about it.
Okay, good.
That's where people burn out.
Right, so it's about how you structure that time. They suggest breaking it into smaller, more manageable sessions throughout the day.
Yes, exactly. Think about weaving it into your daily life. The source suggests things like listening to an English podcast during breakfast or your commute, reviewing vocabulary or reading during lunch break, maybe watching a show or a video in English in the evening, but really focusing on the dialogue,
Active watching.
right? And then dedicating some specific time to active speaking practice.
Dividing it up like that definitely makes the number feel less monolithic.
Yeah,
less overwhelming.
it does. But they also stress that not all hours are created equal. Quality over quantity.
Absolutely. They say one focused, active hour where you are truly engaging with the language is far better than 5 hours of just passive exposure,
Right.
where you're just letting English wash over you in the background while you're, I don't know, cooking or cleaning.
How do you make that study time high quality? Well, it means actively paying close attention, not just listening, but trying to understand, noticing how sentences are put together, maybe repeating phrases out loud.
They call this active listening, and it's designed to train both your brain and your mouth, basically.
Exactly. And a key part of high quality practice is choosing the right material. It needs to be challenging enough to push you, but not so hard that you just get frustrated and give up.
Finding that sweet spot, they say where you understand about 80% of what you're hearing or reading.
Yeah, that's the number they give. The source calls this the comprehensible input level. If you only get 10%, it's just overwhelming.
And if you get 100%, you're not really learning much new, are you?
Precisely. You need to be stretched, like you said, but not completely drowning. That 80% allows you to infer meaning and learn from the context.
The source also emphasizes the need for a balanced approach, hitting all four key language skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
Each one reinforces the others.
And they're unequivocal about this. Speaking is highlighted as the most direct path to fluency.
Ah, interesting.
If you want to be fluent, you must actively practice speaking. It's how you build confidence, improve your pronunciation, and develop that muscle memory in your mouth.
So what's their advice for that?
Yeah.
Just talk more.
Pretty much. Speak out loud every single day. That could be talking to yourself, which might feel weird at first.
Ah, yeah.
Reading sentences aloud, or ideally, speaking with another person, a language partner, a tutor, even a friend.
And they have a really important point here about overcoming the fear factor, right?
Yes. Don't wait until you feel perfect. The whole point is to communicate, not to sound like a, professional voice actor.
Right.
Mistakes are an absolutely essential part of learning, just like they are for babies learning their first language. They stumble, they get words wrong, but they keep trying.
So true. So how do they suggest tackling that fear?
Start small. They suggest talking to yourself first, maybe, or practice with a very patient friend. Using a language app that focuses on speaking practice can also help.
Okay.
And recording yourself speaking is another technique they recommend. It helps you catch mistakes you might not notice otherwise, and you can actually hear your own progress over time.
That's a good idea. What about listening?
Yeah.
Obviously crucial too.
Essential, yeah. It trains your ear to the natural rhythm, the tone, the speed of real English, which, let's be honest, can be very different from the slow, deliberate audio you get in beginner courses.
Absolutely. So listen daily. Podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube, TV, movies, music. Just immerse your ears,
But again, it's about listening actively.
not just background noise.
Exactly. Don't just have it on while your mind is elsewhere. The source advises pausing, repeating phrases you hear, trying to copy the pronunciation and the intonation.
And they highlight a specific, powerful technique called shadowing.
Shadowing, how does that work exactly?
Okay, so you choose a short audio clip, listen to it, and then immediately try to repeat what the speaker says, staying just a few seconds behind them.
Oh, wow. Like an echo.
Kind of, you're trying to match their speed, their tone, their accent as closely as possible. It's pretty intense, but it apparently trains both your listening comprehension and your ability to produce those sounds and rhythms naturally.
That sounds like serious brain training. Okay, reading is also on their list, of course. Important for building vocabulary and seeing how grammar and sentence structures are used in context in real writing.
And it introduces you to maybe more complex ideas or more formal language that you might not encounter in just casual conversation.
Right. And the advice is similar. Choose material that's appropriate for your level. Simple books or news articles for beginners.
More complex novels or articles as you improve.
And reading out loud combines the benefits. It helps you process the structure while also practicing your speaking muscles.
Good point. And they also recommend keeping a small vocabulary notebook.
Yes, writing down new words, their definitions, maybe an example sentence or two, and critically reviewing those notes often. Don't just write them down and forget them.
Makes sense. Finally, writing. How does that fit in?
Well, it helps you organize your thoughts in English, it reinforces grammar rules, and it definitely helps build vocabulary. Plus, it's a really practical skill for real life emails, messages, social media posts.
True. So what kind of writing practice do they suggest?
Start simple. Maybe keep a daily journal in English about your day or your thoughts. Practice writing short messages or emails.
And they mentioned leveraging online communities too, right? Like forums or social media.
Yeah, places like Reddit or specific Facebook groups. Chatting and writing in English there. And getting feedback on your writing, whether from a tutor or a language partner, is particularly valuable.
Okay, so cover all four bases. Now, here's another point from the source that might surprise some people
Oh,
who think they need a massive dictionary in their head. You don't need a huge vocabulary to speak fluently, according to this view.
really? That flies in the face of what many learners believe. They think they need tens of thousands of words.
I know. But the source argues that you only need around 4,000 of the most common words to handle normal, everyday conversations about a pretty wide range of topics.
4,000, that feels more manageable.
Right. The focus should be on useful, practical words that you'll actually use in daily conversation.
Not obscure words like metamorphosis.
Exactly. Not complex academic or technical terms, at least not initially. Learn the common words and phrases first and build from there. A smaller, practical vocabulary is more effective initially than a huge collection of rare words you never use.
Okay, so how do you make those 4,000 words truly useful and automatic? How do you get them from passive knowledge to active use?
Repetition is the key, they say. It's like training for a sport. Athletes repeat skills over and over until they become second nature.
Muscle memory for the brain.
Sort of. And the specific technique they highlight is spaced repetition. Have you heard of this?
I have, yeah. It's about reviewing things at increasing intervals, right?
Exactly. Reviewing what you've learned at systematically increasing intervals to push that knowledge from your short-term working memory into your long-term memory.
So, using flashcard apps like Anki or Quizlet?
Yeah, those are designed specifically for spaced repetition. Or you can do it manually with a notebook system. The key is reviewing learned material regularly, not just once.
And just as crucially, using those new words right away, not just seeing them on a flashcard.
Yes, that's vital. Saying them out loud, using them in sentences, trying to deliberately deploy them in different contexts throughout the day.
The source gives a great example with the word opportunity. Like consciously trying to use that word multiple times throughout the day helps solidify it.
It makes it active. And they also say remember to revisit old lessons. Language learning isn't like completing a checklist. You need to cycle back and reinforce material multiple times.
So repetition isn't just boring review, it's actually training your brain to access and use the language automatically.
That's the idea. It helps you absorb it deeply.
Okay, so that's the foundation. Defining fluency practically, committing significant time broken into active practice sessions, focusing on all four skills, building a practical vocabulary, and using repetition smartly. What else does the source say is essential for this 5-month fast track?
Immersion. Big one. Surrounding yourself with English as much as possible.
But they say you don't need to move to an English-speaking country to do this.
Right. They're clear. You can create an immersive environment wherever you are.
So how do you do that? What are the practical steps?
Well, easy steps include changing the language setting on your phone, your computer, your apps to English.
Ah, okay. Constant exposure.
Yeah, that provides constant low-level exposure in a context you already understand.
Yeah.
Then watch TV shows and movies in English.
Subtitles or no subtitles?
They suggest starting with subtitles in your native language if you need to, then switch to English subtitles, and eventually challenge yourself to watch without any.
Yeah.
And pay attention to how characters actually speak. Maybe try repeating some of their lines.
Okay. What else?
Listen to podcasts or audio while you're doing other things, walking, cooking, commuting. The key here is to pick topics you genuinely enjoy, because that makes the exposure feel less like study and more like just life.
Right. Makes it sustainable.
They even suggest creating specific English-only zones or routines during your day. Maybe your morning coffee time is English time, or your lunch break, or the hour before bed.
Interesting. So in that zone,
In that zone, you consciously make an effort to only speak, listen, read, or even just think in English. It trains your brain to switch into an English mode more easily and naturally.
they give that kitchen example, don't they? Narrating what you're doing.
Yeah, like saying, I'm making a sandwich or I need to wash the dishes. It's a simple way to practice using real life, everyday English in a low pressure setting.
Okay. Immersion is key. And alongside that, they strongly recommend finding a community, connecting with other speakers.
Yes, even if you're not in an English speaking country, this is incredibly valuable. Probably essential, really.
So, how do you find this community?
Online language exchange platforms are great for this. They mention italki, HelloTalk, Tandem.
Right, where you find native speakers learning your language.
Exactly, and you help each other. You can chat via text, send voice messages, have video calls. It's mutual practice.
And what about offline?
You can also look for local English meetups. Sometimes libraries or community centers host them, or you can find groups on sites like meetup.com.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking with other people face to face builds confidence and fluency in a way solo study just can't replicate.
Yeah, that real time interaction.
And joining social media groups, like on Facebook or Reddit, focused on English learning provides support, tips, and more opportunities to chat and write with others who share your goal.
Practicing in these real or near real situations forces you to think on your feet and respond quickly, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Builds that conversational agility.
So, this whole approach, the 4 hours a day, the active practice, the immersion, it requires a lot of discipline. Learning English in 5 months is a huge undertaking. Maintaining motivation for that long at that intensity seems like a major challenge in itself.
Yeah, definitely. And the source acknowledges that. They offer specific strategies for keeping that fire going when things get tough.
Okay, what are they?
First, they say, break down that massive 5 month goal into smaller, clear, achievable steps. Don't just stare at the mountaintop the whole time.
Right. Focus on the next step. Aim to learn, say, 10 new words this week, or have one 30-minute speaking session tomorrow.
Exactly. Small goals are easier to hit, and reaching them gives you that vital sense of accomplishment. And they say, celebrate those small wins. Don't just tick a box and move on.
Acknowledge the progress. Okay, what else?
Second, track your progress. Keep a simple learning journal.
We mentioned that for writing, but this is more general.
Yeah, note down what you studied each day, new words you learned, conversations you had, maybe how you felt about your progress.
How does that help with motivation?
Well, looking back at your journal, especially on days when you feel stuck or discouraged, provides tangible proof of how far you've actually come. It shows you that you are making progress, even if it doesn't feel like it in that moment.
Right, combats that feeling of stagnation. Okay, third.
Use positive rewards. When you hit a goal, no matter how small, give yourself a little treat.
Like,
Whatever works for you. Maybe it's enjoying a favorite snack, taking a relaxing walk, watching an episode of that show you love after you've done your English practice.
associating the effort with pleasure. Smart.
Yeah. Fourth, connect with other learners.
Back to the community aspects.
Right. Join a study group, get active on those online exchanges, or find a dedicated language buddy. Sharing your goals, your struggles, and your successes with others provides support and, crucially, accountability.
Knowing someone else is expecting you to show up or report back.
Exactly. You feel like you're not alone on this pretty intense journey. And finally, the source emphasizes remembering your why.
Your reason for starting in the first place.
Yes. Why did you start learning English? Was it for a better job, to travel the world, to connect with friends or family, to access information online?
Remind yourself of that core purpose daily. They call your why your fuel for when motivation inevitably dips, because it probably will at some point over 5 months.
It almost certainly will. And underlying all these strategies is the core theme of consistency.
Practice every single day.
Every single day, they urge, even if it's just for 15 or 30 minutes on a really busy day, create a learning schedule and try your best to stick to it. It's the regularity, not just the sheer number of hours crammed in occasionally, that builds habit and ensures continuous progress.
So, summing it all up, then, according to this YouTube source, becoming fluent in English in 5 months isn't about some kind of magic pill or innate language genius.
Not at all.
It's about making a massive time commitment, roughly 4 intense active hours per day, but distributing that time smartly throughout your day.
Focusing on balanced practice across all four skills: listening, speaking, reading, writing.
Prioritizing a practical, usable vocabulary over sheer quantity.
Using repetition techniques like spaced repetition, and importantly, immediate active usage of new words.
Actively creating an immersive environment wherever you happen to be.
Finding community to practice with real people, get feedback, and stay motivated.
And relentlessly managing your motivation through setting small goals, tracking your progress, using rewards, connecting with others, and always remembering your core purpose, your why.
Yeah. And it crucially redefines fluency away from this intimidating idea of native-like perfection towards something more achievable, comfortable, confident communication about everyday topics.
The source argues that this isn't just about mastering rules and words in the abstract, but gaining the actual power to express yourself, to connect deeply with others, and to understand the world through a new linguistic lens.
It acknowledges the difficulty, acknowledges the discipline required, but positions every single word learned, every sentence practiced, every conversation had as a concrete step closer to that goal of thinking and speaking in English more automatically.
What's really fascinating here is that blend of, frankly, rigorous time commitment with a very practical focus on making it enjoyable and manageable through these small steps and specific techniques like shadowing and spaced repetition and leveraging community.
It really challenges the idea that language learning has to be this slow, years-long grind
Mhm.
if you're willing and able to apply that kind of intense, structured focus. And it asks us to redefine fluency itself, making the end goal feel less intimidating, perhaps.
It certainly does. This raises an important question for you listening. If achieving fluency in a language in just 5 months is presented as possible through this intense focus on communication over perfection and through consistent, active practice, well, how might applying a similar mindset focusing on practical application and consistent daily effort rather than waiting for perfect knowledge or skills change the way you approach learning any new complex skill in your life?